Hey guys, and welcome back to Unified Gaming. Now if this is your first time here, and you enjoy watching ESO gameplay, seeing new builds, or just want to get better at ESO itself, then start by subscribing now and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Now today guys, we are going to look at a tried and tested method that I use to make my PvP builds. This is obviously a simplified version, but the principles are exactly the same, so it's well worth watching the entire video, as you'll then be able to make your own builds, take builds from other people and tweak them, and overall you have much more success in PvP. Please be aware though that this method will give you a balanced build and it won't be min-max straight away, you could refine it, and those kind of min-max builds are in the builds playlist on the channel. I will also be focusing on Magicka for today, and stamina will be covered in a future video. Now when I make a build, I always think of the gear in three parts: damage, sustain and defense. And with my approach, if you have each area covered sufficiently, you can then use your glyphs and your Munderstone to refine the build so it will work in all contents. As with the gear, I'd always recommend using Impenetrable, especially in this current patch, and if you're newer to PvP, I'd recommend using Magicka glyphs on the small pieces, that's the shoulders, the hands, the feet and the waist, and Tri-Stat on the large pieces, that's the chest, the helm and the legs. As for this method, I think of all the sets and their primary use, and build to include a damage, a defensive set and a sustain set in my build. And to make it easier guys, I've gone through and I've got what I consider to be easy but effective sets based on their primary focus, whether it's damage, sustain or defense. We will also mention the pros and the cons of each set, as you have an idea of its purpose. And to make it even easier, I've also colour coded them as well. Green sets are very easy to get, yellow are somewhat harder and red are rather difficult, with the blue sets being monster sets. And before we jump into the sets themselves, if you haven't done so already, I'd recommend subscribing by clicking the bottom right button on screen, as I post regular ESO content including PvP builds. So for those defensive sets, we obviously have the green sets which are easy to obtain. Impregnable armour gives you loads of critical resist, that's its main job. This means the big hits that are critical hits will be a lot less, which is great, so it's a really good defensive set and it's easy to get. Wizard's Riposte is another good easy to get set. It applies minor maim to the target, reducing their damage by 15%, which is a massive damage reduction, making you really tanky. It doesn't work on the first hit though, so just factor that in, okay? Fortified Brass is a crafted set, it's really easy to get, gives you loads of armour. It can be penetrated, but it's a good starter set. And then Plague Doctor is a good defensive set, as it gives you so much health it's really hard to be ganked and to be killed in one sort of combo, so it's just a really good way to give you that health bar to buffer the damage. Talking of buffer, we have Buffer of the Swift. These are our yellow sets. These are a little bit harder to get because they're more expensive, or they're not as accessible because there's not as much of them around, or you might need to do a dungeon. Buffer of the Swift is our first one. This is one of the best damage defensive sets you can get in the game. It reduces damage by 10%, which can't be bypassed by penetration, so a really good set. And still, this is a great defensive set. It's mainly designed for group play, reducing projectile damage for you and your group, so it's a support set there. You could use it yourself, but it's mainly for group play, so that's where you want to use that. Kristofer ESO gives you loads of healing when you block, so you can back bar this, you can front bar it if you want. You block, you get lots of healing. Lots of healing makes you hard to kill because you're healing through the damage. Mark of the Prior, in all honesty, is one of the best defensive sets you can get in the game. As you get lower and lower in health, you get more and more armour, meaning you take less damage. Executes and things end up tickling a lot of the time, so it's a really, really good defensive set to have. And you can also get it in all kind of jewellery traits, so it can work for Magicka characters too, which is great. We then have Armour Master and Materials Servers. These are our red sets. These are really hard to get because they're expensive, or you need a 9-trait crafter, or they're just not in high demand. As a result, they are a little bit tricky, but they are good. Materials Service is a great small scale set. When you cast a support ability, such as Purge, you will end up giving you and your allies around you armour for about 2 minutes, so it's a really good set. But it does mean that you need to have a support skill slotted and you need to use it regularly. We then have Armour Master, which arguably is probably the best defensive set you can get in this list after Mark of the Pariah. And this allows you to get armour when you cast an armour ability. So for a Magicka character, it's your light armour shield. That will proc this set, give you loads of resistance, and you can back bar it. We then have your monster sets, which are really simple: Shadow Rend, Bloodspawn and Mighty Tudor. Shadow Rend does the same debuff as Wizard's Riposte, so do not pair them together. Shadow Rend gives you a bit of recovery too and does a bit of damage, so it's brilliant in duels, one of the best dueling sets you can get in the game. We then have Bloodspawn, which is kind of the jack of all trades. Every character's run on it because it is so strong. Loads of defense, ultimate generation and stam recovery, which is what you need. We then have Mighty Tudor, which is a really good defensive set. This gives you major resolve, giving you the armor buff, so you don't have to run the armor skill, freeing up a slot or so on some builds, especially sorcerer, which has issues with bar space already. But those are the defensive sets that I think are really easy to get and are really effective. As for our damage sets, these are focused obviously on doing damage. We have the green ones again, these are easy to get. For me, I feel these are things like Crafty Alfeek, Destruction Mastery and Julianus. Crafty Alfeek just gives you loads of Max Magicka, giving you better shields and damage, so it's really good. In this game, if you're unaware, the higher your max stat, so Magicka in this case, the more damage you will do. Every 10.5 Magicka is worth about 1 spell damage on average. Destruction Mastery is exactly the same as Crafty Alfeek, except that you need a Destruction Staff and you can buy it, so these are really easy to get. You then have Julianus, which gives you spell damage, and it gives you lots of spell crit, so it increases your crit chance, which means you do more damage overall. Out of the three, I think probably Alfeek is the most flexible and it's really easy to get. The Innate Axiom, this is your spell damage by 400, which is really good, or your class abilities for Innate Axiom. You then have for the yellow sets, these are a little bit harder because they're a bit more expensive in all honesty, or you need a crafter. You have things like Necropotence, it's arguably one of the best Magicka sets you can get in the game. Lots of Max Magicka giving you massive shield, massive damage, but you must run a pet. If you're a Warden, really good. If you're a Sorcerer, really good. Otherwise it's a bit hard to use, but you can proc it with Shadow Rend, so you could got a good synergy between Necropotence and Shadow Rend. You then have Spinner's Garments. This basically is loads of penetration. This is a very unique set because it allows you to put the penetration on the front bar and you can then run something else on the back bar. So run like a defensive set on the back bar, which is brilliant. So really good set there, high damage. You then have Silks of the Sun, War Maiden. These are sets that basically increase your spell damage. They do get buffed by Major Sorcery as well, it just doesn't show on your stat page, but they do get buffed. So really good sets there for high spell damage. We then have Kagranak's Hope. This is a crafted set. This is basically Julianus with a group utility, allowing you to resurrect people even faster. Then for the red sets, we have Elemental Succession and New Moon Accolade. These are both really hard to get. One Mouse from Arena, the other from a 9-trait crafter. Elemental Succession gives you loads of spell damage to an element, so if your class is mainly elemental based, such as the Dragon Knight, this is a great set for you. If you're something like a Warden, don't use it because it's not good for you. That's kind of the downside with that. As for New Moon Acolyte, that's pretty much Elemental Succession, but on everything. It gives you a ridiculous amount of spell damage. The downside is that it does increase your skill cost quite a lot, so you can front bar this and then have the back bar free for something else, which I do quite often. So that's kind of those two sets there. As for the monster sets, we have 3 in all honesty that are really good. Hrothgar, Valkenscoria and Slimeclaw. Zarn is an honourable mention, but it's not easy to get, so that's why I've left it off, but you could use Zarn here as well. Hrothgar is an AoE fire damage around you, really good. Valkenscoria shoots meteors from the sky when you do dot damage to people. If you use a fire staff, you'll have the dot anyway, most classes have one, so you'll have that proccing quite often. And Slimeclaw gives you Minor Berserk, increasing damage by 8%. Do note that Slimeclaw doesn't work with things like the Bird of Prey from the Warden, so the buffs don't stack. So it's either Minor Berserk or Minor Berserk, and if you get that from somewhere else, don't use Slimeclaw, use a different one. Those are the damage sets and what I feel are really easy to get, but also very effective. Now for those green sets, we have things like Shacklebreaker. These are easy to get, by the way. Shacklebreaker is a crafted set. It gives us max resource and it gives us recovery, so it's a really good sustain set. Helps sustain the fight longer than we could normally. We then have Bloodthorn's Touch. This is an overland set. This gives us resources when we do damage. You won't see it on the stat page though. We then have another crafted set, Seducer. This reduces the cost of our skills. Really good set here. We have another crafted set called Gift of Magnus. This gives us a chance to make our skills cost absolutely nothing, but it's a small chance, so Seducer is slightly better, but you could use this if you see fit. We have another sustain set, which is Willow's Path, and this gives us 15% extra recovery, so if you build high into regen and recovery as a healer, for example, this is a great set. If your recovery is less than 1500 base, then don't use this set. We then have Robes of Alteration Mastery. This gives us really good 2-3 pieces, but the main bit is the cost reduction. It reduces all of our actions, our skills and our ultimates by a flat amount, which is very, very helpful. So if you use your ultimate a lot, this is a good set to run. We then have Bright Throat's Boast. This is our first yellow set. These are a bit hard to get because they're expensive or a dungeon's needed. Bright Throat's Boast gives us extra recovery. If we have a drink buff, so things like spring-loaded infusion, Witch Mother's potent brew, or bewitched sugar skulls. Bright Throat also gives us loads of magicka, which also gives us lots more damage. So if you compare this with an offensive set, you would have really high damage and good sustain. It is very, very expensive though. The second yellow set is Desert Rose. This is a really good set, similar to kind of Bloodthorn's Touch, but instead of us doing damage, when we take damage we get magicka back for free. It won't appear on the stat page, but it is noticeable and you will feel it instantly. It also works through mist form as well, which is one of the few ways to get magicka back whilst you're in mist form, so it's just a little tip there. We then have Lich, which is a dungeon set, hence it's a yellow, and this is a phenomenal set. It's one of the few sustained sets that lets you go offensive. You simply put the buff on your back bar, so have Lich active on the back bar. When you get the buff, you go to the front bar and go offensive, giving you 20 seconds of just unlimited sustain pretty much, where you can really hurt somebody, kill them hopefully. And if you don't do it in that time, you just retreat, recharge and go back again. So it's that kind of hit and run play style, really good on sorcerer. Then for the red set, we only have one for this, and that's Amber Plasm. Amber Plasm is a great set, but it is difficult to get because it's from Ruins of Macedon, but you could run it on normal. It's basically Shackle Breaker, but with extra recovery and less max stat, so that's pretty much it there. Then for our monster sets, we have Grand Wolf. This basically gives us our main stat, so generally magicka, and a little bit of our off stat stamina, so it's a good way to get both magicka and stamina back. We then have Engine Guardian, which puts a little pet near us. He will attach a beam to us, giving us either magicka, stamina or health. We can't pick which one it is, so it's a bit RNG. If you are a sorcerer, however, you can convert the resources, so it's really good on a sorcerer, a bit hit and miss on the other classes. But those are the sustain sets, what I think are easy to get but also highly effective. We're now going to look at how do you build the character now using this method, and if you haven't done so already, I would suggest subscribing because I post regular ESO videos. Now to use this, guys, it's incredibly simple, alright? You pick one from each box. It's as simple as that, okay? If you pick one set from each box, you are then free to use your glyphs on your jewellery and your Munderstone to then finish the build. For me, I kind of see that as like the icing on the cake. It's the final thing you add which rounds the build off. So if you look at a few of my builds, I have it already on the channel. My Magicka Sorcerer, the Apprentice, it uses Bloodspawn. That's my defensive set. It uses Crafty Alfeek. That's my damage set. And it uses Shackle Breaker. That's my sustain set. I then play the build, and then I adjust the jewellery and the Munderstone to see fit for me. If you do it this way, you'll have a build that will work in all content, pretty much. And you'll be able to then tweak it and optimize it, and it allows you to do things where you can go into CP Cyrodiil, literally change your Munderstone for more damage, and you're perfect for CP Cyrodiil. Change your Munderstone for sustain, and you're perfect for Battlegrounds. You do not need to go and get new gear. It's a really easy to use format. So as I said, you pick one from each box. There is a second way that you can use this as well to have a very specialised build, which is what I do quite often. And that's where you pick two from one box or one section. If you look at my Resistor build, this is a Magicka Warden, and this is ridiculously tanky. I've decided to make my focus on that build to be more defensive, because Cyrodiil can be laggy on Xbox. So what I did is I've gone with Bloodspawn and Armor Master. I then used Necropotence as my damage set. All of my damage is coming from Necropotence. All of my defense is coming from Bloodspawn and Armor Master. So at the moment you're going, Dan, you have no sustain. Sustain is the easiest thing to pick up, as you can use your glyphs and your Munderstone to pick up to a point where you're happy with it. So I run triple regen and max Magicka Mundus. I'm pushing 42k Magicka, 2.5k spell damage, and I've got 35k resistance on that build. It is ridiculous. By using this format, you can make builds that are incredibly specialised in one area, whether that's defense, damage or sustain. If you look at my other Magicka Warden, the Frostbite, again, builds on the channel, that runs Bloodspawn, Necropotence and Crafty Alfeek, and once again you're probably going, Dan, there is no sustain. And I fixed that with running sustain jewellery. So all my glyphs, I've got recovery glyphs. And then I use my Munderstone to just fine tune it. Do I want more damage, more defense, more armor, more health? I pick what I need. By doing it this way, you can min-max it to your playstyle and to your sort of game mode, whether it's Battlegrounds or CP Cyrodiil. If you look at my Magicka Templar, the Lightbringer version 2, that runs Bloodspawn, defensive set, New Moon, damage set, and Lich, sustain set. One of each set is covered. As Lich is a very strong sustain set, I've then gone with loads of max spell damage glyphs to increase my damage even further. So I have a ridiculous amount of damage on that build, and I'm nice and tanky with Bloodspawn. And with how I've built it, I've got Potentius, which is a little bit more of an advanced approach. But again, that method works. My Magicka Nightblade Shroud has a very same sort of approach. That uses Bloodspawn, it uses Spinners, Garments, and uses Lich. Defensive set, damage set, sustain set all ticked off. I then use my jewelry glyphs and my Monster Stone to fine tune the build. This works time and time again. I would highly recommend building this way, where you have at least 1 from each section or 2 from one section, and then use your glyphs and your Monster Stone to fix any weakness in the build. By doing it this way, you are not reliant on CP to get your damage or your sustain, and that will mean that your build will work in Battlegrounds absolutely fine. Maybe change the Monster Stone, that's literally all you got to do. And it'll also work in CP Cyrodiil, and it'll be really strong because you've obviously got the CP behind you with a very well-rounded build. It's how I build all my characters. It's a tried and tested method. So just to recap on that, you pick 1 from each section and you use your glyphs and your Monster Stone to fine tune the build. Alternatively, you pick 2 from one section, whether that's 2 defensive sets, 2 damage sets, and then you pick up the sustain through your glyphs and your Monster Stone. You could even pick 2 sustain sets and a defensive set and get all your damage from your glyphs and from your Monster Stone, and you would have a really viable build. So all in all, it's an easy to use approach that's highly effective, and it works for me. I've been playing the game for 4 years now, and this has worked every single patch. So I hope you find this useful, and obviously, as I said, this isn't a best in slot min-max approach. It's what I use, and then I tweak it through obviously playing the build, min-max it that way, and I get something that's really strong at the end. I hope this helps you, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe, button on the bottom right of the screen right now. And with that said, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. So thanks for watching, let me know how you get on with this, and take care. Bye.